Hello everybody, thank you for joining me. So this week we're going to go through a few of the more basic standing postures in yoga. We're going to go through Warrior 1, Warrior 2, and Triangle and put them together in a little bit of just a short but effective standing sequence for you guys. Oftentimes we can view the more basic postures as easy or for beginners or not much of a challenge, but that's just not true. Even in the most simple or seemingly simple yoga postures, there are a lot of subtle aspects that take time and practice and patience to one, become aware of, and number two, to master. So these are really great postures to work on, whether you're a first-time student or you've been practicing for years. You can always go back and refine something a little bit more. You can find something in that pose that maybe you just didn't have the awareness to bring your attention to at the time. And eventually the layers of that posture are peeled back and new subtleties reveal themselves to you. And it's almost like a completely different practice, as the years go on, even though you're doing the same postures that you've been doing. So I feel like I'm a big believer in practicing the basics. I practice the basics in my own practice all the time. I get the need or the want to maybe practice a little more of the fancy or aesthetically pleasing asanas, but I'm telling you, the magic is in the basics, and you set the foundation for the more advanced stuff later on by really mastering your body in those more staple poses, beginner poses, if you want to call them that. So, all right. I'd like us to start seated and take just a few moments in our seat to get grounded, connect to the space, connect to our bodies, and of course, connect to our breathing. So find whatever your comfortable seat looks like for you. Maybe crossing the ankles, one foot in front of the other, whatever feels right for your body today. Placing the hands palms down or palms up on the knees and beginning to cultivate that tall seat. You'll always hear me speak a lot about lengthening up through the spine, not just when we're seated or standing, but through virtually, a lot or majority of yoga postures. We're always keeping a piece of our awareness on our spine and doing our best to elongate and bring some spaciousness into our spine, even if it's not necessarily physically noticeable, but maybe it's an energetic, subtle shift inside your body that you experience, but maybe I wouldn't see if I was watching you. So think about rooting down through the sit bones, through the tailbone, and really getting a sense of a grounded seat, getting a sense of the seat of this posture, which is your sit bones and your legs. And then thinking about stretching up through the spine, even if it's just a subtle shift, a subtle movement. Imagining like you could inch your way into the space above the crown of your head. Being mindful to keep the chin just slightly tucked in towards the chest, not in such a way that you're looking down, but in such a way that you're finding length through the back of your neck. And as always, bringing some awareness to your shoulders and seeing if you can soften them a little bit. Sometimes we have a tendency when we're thinking or a piece of our awareness is on, sitting tall, we have a tendency to shrug the shoulders up towards the ears. So bring your awareness to your shoulders and consciously ask them to relax and soften. And then bring your awareness to your breathing. Begin to stretch out the exhalation, which in turn strengthens the inhalation. And take a few deep breaths in and out and see if you can get a sense of that deep, expansive style of breathing. to get in touch with the diaphragm and finding that lateral or side-to-side movement through the rib cage. And if you'd like to, even placing your hands on the ribs to get a tangible feeling of what this feels like in the body as you're breathing. So you could place your hands on your ribs, and then as you inhale, imagine like you can actively press the sides of your rib cage into your own hands. Allow them to expand outwards and a little bit upwards. And then as you exhale, actively contract the ribs back in and down. Breathing into the hands, inhaling, expanding. Exhaling to release and contract the ribs back in. 2 more breaths this way. Breathe in, expand, feel that rib cage move. Press into your hands. Exhale, relax, ribs move back in and a little bit down. One more time, breathe in. And breathe out. Release your hands back down to your knees. Take a few breaths in and out. Try to bring the inhale and the exhale to roughly the same length. Gently blink the eyes open. And let's make our way into downward facing dog. So however you need to get there is fine. Maybe making your way onto all fours and tabletop. Making sure the hands are roughly shoulder distance before you even get into your down dog. And see if you can get the fingertips, the index fingers in particular, to point straight forward. And if you've got some wrist stuff going on, even turning the hands out a little bit. Take a breath in to prepare. Curl the toes under, and as you breathe out, press through the hands, extend the legs. Now see how this feels. You might need to adjust the length of your downward dog, maybe bringing a little more space between the hands and feet, or maybe shortening up your stance a little bit, whatever is working for you today. And then as always, I like to give the option in the first downward dog, or any downward dog really, but especially the first, to find some intuitive movement. Maybe pedaling out the feet, or twisting the torso from side to side. Doing whatever your body is calling for right now. Or maybe your body's calling for intuitive stillness. And taking a few breaths in and out here. Trying to get a sense of equal weight between the hands and feet. A sort of lengthening out through the side body. And drawing the shoulders away from the ears. And bring the gaze to either the feet, the thighs, or the navel. Just as long as we're not looking forward, we're trying to do our best to always protect the integrity of the spine. Now I want us to go through a few rounds of vinyasa just to warm up the body and bring a little heat into the body before we get into the standing part of this little class. So from here, as you breathe in, slowly shift your way forward into plank. And just pause for a moment, seeing if you can get shoulders right over top of palms. Taking a breath or two to build up a nice strong plank. Shoulder blades to the back ribs. Draw the low belly in. Squeeze those quads and pull the heels towards the back of the room. Take a breath in. And a breath out. Now from here, take a breath in. And as you exhale, you could lower all the way down to the floor. And if that's a little bit too much for you, bring the knees down first, then lower all the way down. And once you find yourself belly down on the mat, bring the tops of the feet to the floor. Think about grounding down through the tops of the feet, the thighs and the pelvis. Draw the shoulders back. And on your next inhale, lift your chest up into cobra. Pausing for a moment. Think about that concept that we talked about at the beginning of class of lengthening through the spine. So think drawing the tailbone towards the heels and then drawing the crown of the head forward first and then up. Think about lengthening through the spine and then lifting. And doing your best to keep, try to keep the pose out of the hands, like as in not using your hands to crank yourself into this back bend too much. Exhale, lower back down. Press the sit bones back to the heels. Downward facing dog. Take a breath in. And a breath out. Inhale, shift forward to plank. Pause for a moment, exhale. Build up your nice strong plank, breathe in. Breathe out, vinyasa, either knees down first or all the way to the floor with control. Tops of the feet come to the mat, ground down. Roll the shoulders back. Inhale, cobra. Lift up your hands, make sure you're not cheating. Breath in. Exhale, lower, press the sit bones back towards the heels, curl the toes under, and extend the legs downward facing dog. Breath in. Breath out. Inhale, shift forward to plank. Pause, exhale. Inhale. Exhale, vinyasa, all the way to the floor or knees down first. Inhale, cobra. Try not to throw the head back and get too necky here as well. Always thinking about keeping a neutral neck. Exhale, lower down. Sit bones to heels, downward facing dog. And take a breath or two in your down dog. Move around, find stillness, whatever feels right. Press through your hands, equal weight in the hands and feet. Think about drawing those low ribs in and drawing the tailbone towards the ceiling. Not getting overly concerned with the heels touching the floor. Another breath in. And breath out. Now from here, we're going to pivot the left heel in 45 degrees to the inside. So left heel towards the right, 45 degrees. And then you're going to step your right foot towards the top of your mat. Now you might have to use your hand to assist your leg towards the top of your mat. Completely fine. Now take a moment here with your hands still on the floor. Find your balance. Think about actively rooting down through both of your feet until you feel a sense of stability. And once you think you've gotten your balance, then take a breath in and lift the torso and reach the arms overhead. Now, if you've got some shoulder stuff going on, you could come to cactus arms, and I'll even cue the hands to come to heart center if that's still, negative for the shoulders. So whatever's working or whatever works for you today for the shoulders. And then really think about working this left leg around to the inside. So think spiraling the left shin, spiraling the left thigh, and working that left hip around and working that right hip back. Because the goal is to eventually have the hips square with the front of the mat. And we're trying to cultivate a nice deep bend in this front knee. Think about drawing the low ribs in and the four corners of the rib cage right over top of the four corners of the pelvis. And is always coming back to your breath. Gaze is straight forward or up towards the hands. Sink down through center. Get really nice and deep into this posture. Don't forget about grounding down through your feet. So that's an awful lot of cueing for one seemingly simple posture, but like I said, there's so many different dimensions to any yoga posture. Let's take 2 more breaths. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now from here, we're going to transition to Warrior Two. So if you'd like a little bit of a break, you can extend that forward leg before you open the hips, or you can keep it bent. So we're going to keep the arms overhead. We're going to turn the torso to the left, so we're going to face the side of the mat. So arms are going to be open, hips are going to be open, and then we'll bring that deep bend back into that forward knee, and we'll bring our arms out to the sides for Warrior Two. Now for Warrior Two, lots of times people have a tendency to lean forward. So if you kind of feel like maybe you're a little bit off center, you could try reaching the left arm towards the back of the mat and then try to find yourself at center. So think heart space, over top of navel, over top of pelvis. And once you have that center, think about melting the hips down and really dropping down into this pose. Always keep a piece of your awareness on your feet, constantly rooting down through your feet. That's the seat of the posture here, is your feet. And doing our very best to draw the low ribs in. And trying also to keep softness in the shoulders. So lots of times I'll have people in my class like shrugging their shoulders up to their ears. They're so concentrated on the bottom half of their body that they forget to keep the top half buoyant and light. Gaze for this posture is right over top of the forward middle finger. Almost there. One more deep breath in. And full breath out, maybe sink just a little bit deeper. And then inhale, extend that right leg. If you'd like to, you could scooch this back foot up a little bit and maybe turn the toes back in just a little. Keeping the hips nice and open. We're going to bring the left hand to the lower back. And then we're going to start to reach forward with the right arm and do our very best to track our right side body right over top of our thigh. And you'll find that you'll reach forward far enough and then your body wants to naturally stop you. When that happens, fold sideways and place your hand either on your shin, maybe above the knee on the thigh, just not right on the knee joint itself. And then roll that left shoulder open and reach the left arm up. Now it might be a little bit much for your balance to bring the gaze towards the top hand. If that's the case, feel free to look down at the floor. Now we're trying to keep just a little bit of a soft bend in this front knee, especially if you have a tendency to hyperextend. As always, think about grounding down through your feet. And then we're going to think about drawing this left hip back and this right hip forward. And of course, always coming back to your breathing, trying to tap into that equal, deep rhythm of breath. One more breath in. And as you exhale, lower the gaze, soften that right knee, and as you inhale, lift back up to stand. So we can bring the arms overhead, and we're gonna pivot the feet around and come into warrior one on the other side. So we're gonna pivot around so that the front toes are pointing straight forward, or the left toes are pointing straight forward, and the back or right toes are angled in 45 degrees, just like they were on the other side. Again, arms are overhead, and we'll come into that warrior one on the left side. So deep bend in that front knee. Placing the arms wherever is suitable for you, maybe overhead, palms together, or cactus arms, or even hands at heart center. Keeping the gaze straight ahead, paying attention to what's going on in our feet, paying attention to what we're doing with our ribs. Are we drawing them in close towards the spine and staying nice and strong through the core? And maybe sinking down a little bit deeper. Gaze is either straight forward or up towards the hands. And then thinking about spiraling that right leg in towards the inside. So think right shin spirals in, right thigh spirals in, right hip is spiraling in, and left hip is moving back, trying to get a sense of squaring the hips with the top of the mat. One more breath in. And breath out. If you need a little bit of a break to transition, extend that left leg, open the hips back up, back foot is right foot or back foot is parallel with the back of the mat. Arms are together overhead. As you exhale, bring a deep bend into that front knee, part the air with the hands, come into warrior two. See if you can play around and find center, heart space over top of navel, over top of pelvis. And when you find that center, drop down into it, sink into this pose, work a little bit. You're likely feeling quite a bit of intensity or resistance in the left thigh, and maybe even in the glutes. But just know that this is challenging your body, you're building strength. So try not to run away from that challenge. That's a huge part of yoga, is learning how to stay calm and centered when we're experiencing intensity in our bodies. One more breath in. And breath out, maybe sink a little deeper. Inhale, extend that left leg, maybe scooching that back foot up just a little bit and turning the toes in so that they're angled like they were before. Let's bring the right hand to the lower back. Reach that left arm forward. Do your best to track the side body right over top of the thigh. Go until the body naturally stops you, then fold sideways. Make sure that you're not placing your hand on the knee joint, so either below or above. Roll that right shoulder open, reach the right arm up. Gaze is either towards the top hand or down towards the floor, depending on your balance. And then start bringing your awareness back to grounding through your feet and working those hips around. So on this side, it'll be right hip drawing backward and left hip drawing forward. And then as always, coming back to your breathing, taking notice of where you're experiencing this posture today. And remembering that it'll change day to day. You're not always going to have the same experience, even if you practice the same thing every single day. Our bodies are in a constant state of flux. So where are you at today in this pose? Get curious. One more deep breath in. And as you exhale, Lower the gaze, soften the left knee. Inhale, come back to stand. Keep a nice bend in that front knee. And on your next exhale, see if you can windmill your hands down to the floor and step back into downward dog. And maybe you'd like to move through a vinyasa, maybe you'd like to stay in downward dog. Take a few breaths to do what you'd like to do. Either give yourself a little bit more work or give yourself a little bit of a rest. Now we're going to make our way to a seat. However you need to get there is fine. If you'd like to try a little something, we could. Try bending the knees. Bring the gaze between the thumbs. And see if you can step your left foot towards your right wrist, and then your right foot towards your left wrist, crossing the ankles, and see if it works out for you to sit down. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Something to work on, and then eventually you can work on that hop from downward dog to seated, which is actually really fun to practice. So just exactly the way that we started is the way we're going to finish. So find yourself in a nice seated position. Place your hands comfortably on your legs. Close your eyes and take a few moments to check in with yourself. And observe the effect of that little standing sequence on your body. I'm trying to evaluate without attaching emotion or judgment. Simply noticing how those few postures were for you. Were they difficult physically? Was it difficult mentally? Did you keep a positive and kind inner dialogue? And not being hard on yourself if you didn't, just simply noticing what was going on. Try not to intellectualize it too much. I encourage you to stay in this space of stillness for as long as feels appropriate for you. And even maybe if you have some time, do a little bit of a meditation. Allow yourself to enjoy sitting in some stillness after moving your body. It can actually be really, really nice to sit and observe the energetic shift that was caused by whatever postures you were practicing. And just remember that however that went for you was exactly the way that it was supposed to go. Your practice was perfect. So please take a moment to thank yourself for showing up and getting on your mat and putting in an honest effort for something good for you. Thank you again for joining me, and we'll see you guys next week. Namaste.